Bryan Ray, America's Rugby News, Major League Rugby 2023 preview. The New York Ironworkers. How's that for a new name for you? You know, I never really pictured myself in a New York shirt, but you know, they did win the championship last year, so I think I have to show them a little bit of respect. So there you go, Steve Lewis. That one's for you, buddy. Here we go. The defending champions. What a year for New York. Pulling out all the stops in the end, getting it done in the playoffs, and you know, to their credit, winning 3 games to do it. It wasn't like they had the bye week. It was the Free Jacks, remember, who had that bye week, and in New York winning all 3 of those playoff games. So just a tremendous accomplishment for them. Really pleased for that organization. What are we looking ahead to here in 2023? Well, some changes, some big changes. Obviously, I've just mentioned the new name, the Ironworkers. That's interesting. Logo changing just slightly this year. They've now got this light blue outline going on. A new home, moving to Memorial Field in Mount Vernon, so no longer in New Jersey. Can't call them Rugby New Jersey anymore. And of course, new coach as well. You know, I'd say, you know, why would you change the coach on a winning team? But, you know, Marty Veal going back to New Zealand, now coaching Northland in the NPC. But I think it's maybe a little bit of recognition of the role that Andy Ellis in particular and Nehe Milner-Skudder played, not only on the field but off the field, almost as player coaches towards the end of the season. So I think maybe that change was possibly in the plans before the final itself. That maybe a little bit of speculation. But anyways, Marty is gone. James Semple is in, the new head coach, and kind of inexperienced, but he's been a head coach of the Waikato women's side for the past couple of years. Won the Farah Palmer Cup. That's New Zealand's provincial competition in 2021. Of course, he was a player coach with the Utah Warriors back in 2019, and helping him will be Ben Afiaki, this former All Blacks prop who sadly had to end his playing career early, but he's been the scrum coach for the Blues men's Super Rugby side. So a new coaching ticket, as they say. Let's go back and look at this outstanding squad that they had last season and take off the names that are gone. The obvious ones that we'll take away first. Andy Ellis going out on a winning note. Their All Blacks scrum half, a tremendous couple of seasons in New York for him. Of course, Nehe Milner-Skudder, as I mentioned, he's now the interim coach at Manawatu, keeping an eye on them until Mike Rogers from the Free Jacks goes and takes over that position, so he is not returning. Waisaki Naholo, I'm not entirely sure where he is, to be honest. I'm not sure if he's retired now or playing on club rugby or something in New Zealand. Don't know what's up with him at the moment. Let's shoot back over to the front row and then work our way through the positions now that we've got the 3 All Blacks out of the way. In the front, well, Peter Reyes, he was a draft pick. He wasn't really a prop. They were kind of, you know, working him around with him in that position. He played, I think, 1 game, 2 games, maybe as a replacement last year, but really wasn't working out as a prop because, I mean, he wasn't playing prop in collegiate rugby. He's mostly second row, and he was playing a bit of back row in the American Rugby Premiership as well. So he is no longer there. Kalolo Tuiloma, their massive tight head prop. I'm not sure what he's doing. He returned to New Zealand in the off-season. Not sure if he's still playing on or retired. Wilton Rabolo making history, the first Brazilian international to go over and play in Super Rugby with the Western Force. And Sakurai Taulafo, their great Samoan, returned to France to play over there. I think he's in National 1 with Serret or something like that. Will Tucker, who came in, the 6'8" giant lock, played weirdly a little bit in the blindside flank last year. He's got picked up to play in Super Rugby. I think it was with the Highlanders. So that's a pretty good, impressive move for him. Nick Civetta, it seems, has hung up the boots. There's been no formal announcement, but certainly New York bidding him farewell. He is not returning, so it seems like Nick might be finished. Antonio Kirikiri, was actually playing with Maidenhead in England. He was a kind of a late season arrival and ended up actually starting at number 8, controversially ahead of Cara Pryor. So he is not returning. And looking at the backs, the rest of these guys are all back. So for the most part, that's not a whole lot of losses. I mean, there are some key figures. Obviously, those All Blacks, losing them is going to make a difference. But there is a strong core group of players returning. And to the aforementioned Mr. Lewis's credit, the GM, he did say he was going to keep as many of these guys in as he could, and you'd have to say he's a man of his word. A lot of these guys coming back, so a good portion of that starting lineup is back. So there is your remains of the 2022 champions side. Now we're going to look at the newcomers for 2023. All right, new players for a new coach at a new stadium in old New York. You love it. So here we go. First, a little bit of a shift. So Nick Mayhew was playing, he started the season kind of playing tight head, and then he was playing mostly loose head towards the end of the season. Now, in the offseason, he went back to New Zealand, was playing in the NPC, and actually switched over to tight head. So that's what he's going to be doing this season. So we're going to slide Mayhew over. He becomes the number 1 tight head prop right there. So let's look at some of the new props who've are coming in. Tavita Langi coming in, another guy coming in for New Zealand from Auckland. Powerful loose head prop, so we'll throw him in there. And also coming in from New Zealand, from North Harbour, Sam Davies, a youngster. I think he's 20, 21. Not a whole lot of experience, but looks like he has some promise. Certainly, if you're getting minutes in the NPC at that age, you probably got some good potential. So there's a new tight head prop. Another new tight head prop, Enrique Quinteros. You lose Rebolo, the Brazilian, so you get a Paraguayan international, the first Paraguayan to play in MLR, so we'll throw him there. He was actually playing in Spain when he got the call to come to New York, so that was an interesting addition. Also coming in at prop, returning for New York, Anthony Perry coming in. He's been playing with Nyack, local guy. Of course, he had been playing with New York for 3 years prior to last season, but then Marty Veal I guess he just kind of fell out of favor with Marty and wasn't on the squad last year, but he is back, so that's a good, useful pick up for them, certainly. And Doyle Hedgepeth, we're going to throw him on there because he's on the extended squad. He was picked up in the collegiate draft, kind of a project guy. He's converting to prop, but played loose head with the USA U23, so an interesting athlete, more of a long-term guy right there. Dylan Fawcett and Caleb, of course, Chance Wengluski, the US Eagle, returning as the number 1 loose head. Dylan Fawcett and Caleb Geiger returning at hooker. Geiger really playing with the Falcons, taking a step up last season. Really looks like a future Eagle. You'd have to say maybe this year is the year when he makes his debut. We'll have to see. An impressive athlete. And Daquan Perry coming in from Rugby HDX. He'd actually been in the New York squad a couple of years ago as a flanker in the extended training squad. Didn't see any game time, but he's now switched to hooker permanently, so he's the number 3 guy there. Nate Brakely, skipper again this year. Charlie Hewitt returning this big second row. Now they needed a couple other guys to fill in here for Nick Civetta and for Will Tucker. So Hamish Dalzell coming in from New Zealand. He'd been playing with Auckland, and he'd also spent some time professionally in Japan. He played for New Zealand's under-20 side a few years back. So he's a big, huge 6'7", piano mover for sure for him. So he comes in there. And the other guy, well, you got to replace one Tucker with another, don't you? So Brad Tucker coming in from Seattle to replace his brother Will. Not a direct replacement. I think you'd probably say Dalzell is more the direct placement for Will Tucker. But Brad Tucker coming over. I'm putting him here at lock, though. I might slide him down here to the back row in just a second to kind of even things out. In fact, let's do that now. He plays lock or blindside flanker. A great pickup. Has had a little bit of injury problems with Seattle, but still got some fight, I think, left in him. So another second row they've got is Bill Whiteside. They picked up in the collegiate draft. Got him out of Lindenwood, another USA age grades player. And like Hedgepeth, he's on the extended roster. So a guy for the future. But I think he'll get some minutes this year. I think we'll see how it goes. Otherwise, the back row, no real new additions, unless you count Tucker. They're listing him as a lock. He is that swing guy who can play both. Ben Bonasso actually oddly was playing second row last year. I don't think he's going to be playing lock too much this year. And then you've got Cara Pryor returning, usually a flanker in New Zealand, but more of a number 8 with New York. Pango Heine, who unfortunately had that bad hamstring injury last season, missed a lot of the campaign. He's back to fitness. Great to see. Great character. Brendan O'Connor, who was just a tremendous addition for them at open side flanker last year. And Joe Bassert returning as well, U.S. eligible. This young guy who's really working his way up. See if he can challenge for a starting role this year. He can play across the back row. So pretty good. Forward pack, you look at that, no real obvious gaps. They've got your, cover, good specialist cover at every position. I don't really have any real complaints. Maybe one more loose forward would be nice or whatever, but that would be, I guess I do have one little complaint. If you look here at the props, they got 4 of their senior props are imports, and I just think that's a lot. That kind of limits your match day squad selection a little bit. Anthony Perry, bringing him back in maybe helps that balance a little bit, but I still, all your tight heads so you know that you're going to be using 2 of your tight head slots on imports. So anyways, let's look to the backs. Connor McManus, and an interesting call here. They've, no real direct replacement for Andy Ellis. Connor McManus and Connor Buckley, who played a lot during the regular season last year, they've been competing for the past couple years for playing time. It looks like they're going to back those 2 guys to be their main men at number 9. So, has to give them some credit to back the young American talent. And coming in behind them, Christian Rodriguez. They picked him up from the LA Guillotines. He didn't actually play any scrum half last year. 2 years ago he did, but last year he was playing in the outside backs, wing, fullback, but he's been signed primarily as a number 9. And Eamon Matthews coming in from Rugby ATL. Now all 4 of these guys have played for USA U19 or U20s, so 4 young guys who are really going to compete for those 2 match day spots. So that's nice to see. You have to give them some credit for that. Jack Hyden and Sam Windsor returning at fly half. Your third fly half option is probably Jason Emery, or possibly Nick Feeks, who has come in from the Nola Gold, a great pickup. We're going to slide, I guess, Powers over here for the moment. We'll put Feeks in behind Fido. He's been playing mostly left wing for Nola Gold, but he can play fly half, he can play fullback. Really useful player, a tremendously exciting attacking player. I'm sure he'll get plenty of game time this season. The other midfielders here, of course, Fasi Fuatai, Quinn Nawati, I got to get the pronunciation right. I can't even pronounce that word. And Ishmael Shabazz, playing more in the wing. They've listed him as a wing. I see him more of as a center, but anyways, he plays both positions. Nawati also plays both positions. Emery can play 10, can play fullback as well. Fuatai's played a lot in the wing, and that, I think, is going to be interesting this year because this new player they brought into the midfield, Terangi Walden, he's got lots of Super Rugby experience with the Highlanders. He played with the Hurricanes this past season, played with New Zealand under 20s a few years back, the New Zealand Maori. Very solid center in a different style. He's bigger than both of these guys, normally an inside center. So, we're throwing him here, but, I have a feeling we're going to try and get all 3 of those guys in the starting lineup. So we'll see if we can do that once we get to our Matchday 23 selections in just a moment. And what we're going to do here, we're going to slide Andrew Coe over to number 15. Of course, he can play anywhere across those back 3 and even, fill in at 13 in a pinch. And I'm doing that. Troy Lockyer is returning. Again, he's another guy who had a bad hamstring injury last year, returning to fitness. Ed Fido, everybody knows of his exploits last season. John Powers, a versatile guy, can play across the back 3, could even fill in at fly half in a pinch. And Brooklyn Hardiker, they've brought over here on the wing from the LA Guillotines. Didn't actually play last year. He was injured the whole campaign, missed the entire season. This Australian guy, he trained with Australia Sevens. He might have even played with Australia Sevens in like an invitational tournament or something like that. But he missed the entire year, so we really haven't had a good look at him at all. But there he is. They picked him up along with Rodriguez in that dispersal draft. So there is your squad for 2023. Again, no real obvious weaknesses here. You know, best, you know, maybe like to see another loose forward in there, possibly, you know, with Tucker maybe concentrating on lock. But other than that, I think that's a pretty impressive roster they put together again for 2023. So now let's see if we can put together a pretty good looking matchday squad. Okay, matchday selections. Of course, we have to know how many imports are allowed in the 23. Well, for New York, that number is 11. And that's very important for this side because they do have a number of imports and they're going to have to make some big calls this year, as they did last season. Recall Cara Pryor was left out of that final, and Ed Fido also didn't play. Now, you know, they said he was injured, but if he was fit, they would have had to drop another one of their imports out of that lineup. So they're going to have a little bit of a selection dilemma again this season. So let's start filling in this lineup. We'll kind of base it on what last year's starting 15 was. So Chance Wengluski coming in at loose head prop, and Dylan Fawcett, our hooker. Tight head prop, we're going to start with Nick Mayhew making the switch over this season. The second rows are captain Nate Brakeley, and we're going to put in Hamish Dalzell, this new big fella out of New Zealand. I don't know which one of those guys will play on the right side. They're both big and can certainly play there. Ben Bonasso is going to go back to his preferred blindside flanker spot. Well, I think he actually would love to play at number 8, but he's been playing blindside flanker anyways recently. Brendan O'Connor there at number 7. We'll put Cara Pryor in there at number 8. So there's 4 of our import slots used up. Halfbacks, I just think Connor McManus is probably going to have the edge to start off with at scrum half. We'll see. There's good competition for spots there. Jack Heighton, definitely going to be our fly half. Ed Fido, stick him in there on the left wing for sure. Okay, so now we're up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now remember, so we've got room for 5 left, 5 players left, but recall our reserve tight head prop also has to be an import, just because of the number of imports that New York has a prop. So it'll be Davies or Quinteros there. So now we've only got 4 left that we can, or 3 left, I think. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, 4 left. Okay. So we got a little bit of versatility here. So there's 3 guys I think we really want to get in here that are all imports: Jason Emery, Teodangi Walden, and Fasi Fuatai. So the question is, where do you play these guys? I mean, how did they line up? Walden has almost always played inside center, but he's a very different 12 than a Jason Emery, who's kind of that second 5/8 playmaker style. Walden a little bit more of a traditional center type. So do they move him to 13 and play Emery at 12? And then play Fasi Fuatai on the wing, where Fuatai actually played mostly on the wing in New Zealand before coming to New York when he was mostly a 13. So for me, that's probably I mean, you could switch the two, put Walden at 12 and play Emery at 13. You know, I don't really know how they're going to arrange. I know they're going to need to get these 3 guys in somehow. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do that. And then I think probably Andrew Coe comes in here at 15. I mean, you could put Emery at 15, put Coe on the wing. And I mean, you would do this. You put Fuatai at 13, Coe at 14, and Emery at 15. But I think they're pretty keen on Emery in the midfield, and they should be. He was outstanding last season. So I don't know what the configuration is going to be. I'm pretty confident that those are the guys that are going to be in there starting, but I don't know how they're going to line up. So that to me is going to be really interesting to see in their lineup. My best guess is Fuatai on the wing, and Walden maybe at 13, and Emery at 12. That looks like a pretty strong lineup to me. Now looking at the subs, Caleb Geiger obviously is going to be your backup hooker. We'll get back to loose head in a second. Second row, I mean, you got Tucker. Well, I mean, let's look at this. You either go, we've only got, 1 slot left, I think, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we've only got one import slot left. I mean, we haven't, Troy Lockyer might have been in contention for fullback, but that completely limits our ability to put another import in there. So, and he's coming back from that bad hamstring injury, so I think he's going to have to kind of work his way back in. Brooklyn Hardiker, we can't get him in because he'll use that up. I mean, Tavita Langi kind of makes sense as the next loose head in there, but then you can't get Brad Tucker in the lineup, right? Now, you do have Charlie Hewitt as the second row, so we'll put him in there. And then in your back row, you've got Basser and Heine competing for that spot. Scrum half, Buckley and Rodriguez and Matthews, one of them. We'll put those two there at the moment. Fly half, you've got Sam Windsor. And then you got a lot of versatility here. Fuatai can move back into the midfield. So, maybe Nick Feeks, or you've got Quinn Nawati. A lot of options here. I mean, you'd really love to get Tucker in on the bench somewhere. So to do that, you'd probably have to take Lange out, slide Hewitt over, Tucker there on the bench, and then Anthony Perry coming here as the reserve loose head. That's the only way really that's going to work, unless you drop one of those guys out of the lineup. And do you really want to do that? I mean, I don't really see the point of bringing in Tarangu Walden if he's not going to be starting. He was a starter in Super Rugby. It seems kind of crazy to do that. And you're not going to drop Pryor out. He might just leave completely if you did that to him again. You want him in there somewhere. So Dalzell, if you take him out, but again, what's the point of bringing him in if he's not going to be starting? So as you can see, there are some selection dilemmas here in their match day 23, and it's kind of more about the construction of their bench. Really, I think the starting lineup mostly kind of picks itself. I mean, there's going to be some competition for spots, certainly at scrum half, and I mean, you can't count out Feeks and Nawati. They're both excellent players. They'll be competing for spots in those outside backs and giving guys rests, and and Tucker, obviously, I mean, what a great guy to have coming off the bench. Tight head prop, we don't really know a whole lot about Sam Davies, so maybe he kind of, bumps into the starting role ahead of Mayhew, not sure. And obviously Lange as well, he'll probably start a few games with Chance Wengluski on the bench. So competition for spots, a lot of depth in this squad. I mean, this starting lineup looks really strong. They've got size in the second row. They got a strong, front row that can scrummage. The back row, they've got Bonasso's an excellent line-out jumper. Pryor's also pretty handy in the line-out. O'Connor's your breakdown guy. Heighton looked really good last year at fly half, and injured for a little parts of the stretch. Missed a few games, and they certainly missed him, and proved himself a goal kicker under pressure. The big question is how is McManus or Buckley or Rodriguez or Matthews going to work out at 9? No Andy Ellis. I mean, that's obviously a huge step down in terms of experience at scrum half. So that's really the big question mark on this side. And it shows that every team in MLR that we've looked at, and there's no team that looks way above everybody else to me. Every team has their issues, their little spots, idiosyncrasies where you can maybe exploit, or there's questions to be answered. Let's put it that way. And definitely the question to be answered for New York is a number 9. We don't want to put too much pressure on him, and certainly Connor McManus has shown himself to be very talented, and Buckley as well last year. So and Rodriguez looked great a couple years ago when he was playing with LA at number 9. Matthews he doesn't have a lot of experience at MLR, so that'll be a really fun to see the competition at 9, and there's the big question that needs to be answered. But the big question for the season is this team good enough to go on and win another title this year? The short answer for me, yes, they are. They are good enough to do that. Does it mean they are going to do that? Well, I'm not sure. There's a long way between now and June, and anything could happen. Injuries for them. I mean, they're certainly going to have competition again from New England. They're certainly going to have competition, I think, this year from New Orleans, who are a vastly improved side. But these guys have big game experience. They've played together. There's a lot of continuity, and they've just reinforced their squad a bit, even though they've lost those 3 All Blacks. So maybe that brings them down just slightly. Still a very formidable lineup. So really looking forward to seeing New York play. Really looking forward to seeing that first game against Seattle. That's going to be what a treat to see. And I hope Brad Tucker has a stormer out there if he gets on the field. So there you go. The New York Ironworkers, MLR 2023. Let me know what you think.